The Marvel Universe contains thousands of dangerous creatures, but two stand above the rest as the ultimate survivors. Vampires are undead monsters that have plagued humanity for centuries, while Wolverine is a mutant who can heal from almost anything. Usually, these two forces cancel each other out, but history shows that under the right circumstances, their combination creates something far worse than either alone. When the unbreakable mutant becomes the undead king, the result is a creature that cannot be killed or stopped, threatening the entire world. To understand the danger, we must examine why this rarely happens. Wolverine's mutant power is his healing factor, a biological process that constantly repairs his cells. Vampirism in the Marvel Universe acts like a virus that invades the body, kills the host, and rewrites their DNA. For a normal human, this process is irreversible, but Logan is far from normal. His white blood cells attack the vampire infection the moment it enters his bloodstream. In most encounters, like his battles during the Blood Hunt event of 2024, a bite is merely an annoyance because his body burns out the virus before it can take hold, making him effectively immune to standard vampires. Immunity is not the same as invincibility, and clever enemies have found workarounds even though his body fights off the infection naturally. The most famous example occurred in 2010 during the Curse of the Mutants storyline, where vampire leadership knew they could not turn Wolverine with a simple bite. They used technology against him by having Cyclops inject nanobots into Logan's bloodstream to artificially suppress his healing factor. With his defenses down, the vampire virus flooded his system instantly. This proved that if you turn off the mutant power, the man falls just like anyone else. And this specific weakness opens the door to the nightmare scenario. A vampire Wolverine is far more dangerous than the human version, because vampirism grants superhuman strength, speed, and senses that rival or exceed Logan's natural mutant abilities. Stacking these buffs on top of his existing power set makes his capabilities absurd. He becomes faster than the eye can follow, and strong enough to toss cars like baseballs. His senses of smell and hearing, already sharp enough to track a target across a city, become supernatural. He gains the ability to transform into mist or a wolf, which adds new stealth options, and this mix removes the few physical limitations Logan usually possesses. The scariest part of this hybrid is not the offense, but the defense. Traditional vampires have one major weakness that hunters like Blade exploit constantly, which is decapitation. Removing the head kills the body, but Wolverine's skeleton is laced with adamantium, the strongest metal on Earth. Cutting through his neck is impossible because a blade would simply bounce off his spinal column. Even a wooden stake to the heart becomes nearly impossible because his ribcage is armored with the same indestructible metal. Killing a vampire Wolverine requires sliding a blade perfectly between his ribs with surgical precision while he attacks at supersonic speeds, meaning he effectively becomes immortal. This video exists because of your input. We chose this topic specifically because of the comments on our last video, so thank you to everyone who contributed. Share your ideas for our future what-if explorations below, and the most liked comments will be selected for upcoming scripts. If you want to see those videos happen, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Sunlight is the ultimate weapon against the undead, but Logan breaks this rule too. The comics show that his healing factor continues to work even after he turns, creating a terrifying loop. The sun burns his vampire flesh while his mutant power regenerates it instantly. He would be in constant pain with smoke rising from his skin, but he would not die. He effectively becomes a Daywalker who can hunt at noon just as easily as midnight. Other vampires are forced to hide in coffins when the sun comes up, but Logan simply puts on a hood and keeps killing, meaning there is no safe time to hide from him. We do not have to guess how this ends, because Marvel published the exact scenario in 1991. In What If, Volume 2, Number 24, Dracula makes the mistake of turning the X-Men. Logan usually fights the Control, but in this reality he snaps and challenges Dracula for the throne. The fight is brutal, but short because Wolverine is faster, angrier, and indestructible. He kills Dracula and drinks his blood, absorbing the full power of the Vampire King. He becomes the Lord of Vampires rather than a simple minion, retaining his strategic mind while losing his morality completely, which leads to a global catastrophe. Once Wolverine takes the throne, he targets his own family instead of stopping with humans. In the comic, he systematically hunts down the X-Men and turns Storm, Colossus, and Nightcrawler into his lieutenants. His efficiency is terrifying because he knows their weaknesses, hiding spots, and psychological triggers. He uses Cerebro to hunt down mutants globally to convert them rather than save them. A vampire army is bad enough, but a vampire army made of Omega-level mutants is an extinction-level event. The X-Men become humanity's apex predators under Logan's command instead of its protectors. The only people left to fight in this timeline are those willing to cross lines, so Frank Castle becomes the last line of defense. Bullets do not work on Wolverine, so Frank teams up with the spirit of Doctor Strange to find a mystical solution. This proves the scale of the threat, since military might is useless. Physical damage becomes irrelevant when Wolverine is a vampire, so the Resistance has to rely on magic and ancient spells, because technology and firepower cannot put Logan down. The story shifts from a superhero fight into a supernatural horror story. Wolverine has spent his entire life fighting his inner animal, the berserker rage, but vampirism strips away that discipline. The thirst amplifies his aggressive instincts to uncontrollable levels, removing the hesitation he usually employs to avoid killing. He views humans strictly as food, and the tragedy is that the man named Logan dies long before his body does. The remaining creature wears his face and uses his claws without any of his honor. This result is the Weapon X program's dream, since it creates a perfect killing machine with no conscience. Since physical defeat is impossible, the only way to stop Vampire Wolverine is to rewrite the rules of reality. Doctor Strange's spirit guides the Punisher to the Montesi formula in the comics, which is a spell from the Darkhold designed to destroy all vampires. This nuclear option erases the magic that sustains them rather than fighting them. This shows that there is no saving Logan once he turns, as this timeline offers no cure or redemption arc. The only solution is total annihilation of the vampire species, proving how dangerous he is, since the heroes must resort to genocide to stop him. The 1991 story showed the worst-case scenario, but modern comics have reinforced how hard it is to actually reach that point. The 2024 Blood Hunt event confirmed that Logan is a hard counter to vampires without nanobot interference. He spent the event hunting them down by the dozens, and his blood was even used as a weapon against them. This creates a fascinating duality, where Wolverine is both the greatest threat to vampires and, if turned, the greatest threat to humanity. He walks a fine line between being their executioner and their potential messiah. Fans often ask who would win between the vampire hunter Blade and a vampiric Wolverine. Blade has the experience and the gadgets, but the odds favor Wolverine. Blade's primary strategy relies on speed and knowing vampire weaknesses, but these weaknesses disappear against Logan. Silver nitrates might burn him, but he heals, and stakes break on his ribs. Blade would be fighting an opponent who is just as fast, stronger, and has centuries of combat experience. Blade and Wolverine work together in the Curse of the Mutants arc, but Blade admitted that a turned Wolverine would be a nightmare scenario, even he might not survive. One physical weapon exists that could theoretically work, called the Muramasa Blade. This mystical sword was forged from Wolverine's own soul and is capable of halting his healing factor. A hero acquiring the specific weapon could theoretically kill Vampire Wolverine because it cuts through adamantium and stops regeneration. The sword is rare and often hidden or broken in continuity. Any fight against him without this specific artifact is just a stalling tactic, showing that his invulnerability is nearly absolute, since it requires a weapon made of his own spirit to take him down. A vampire Wolverine acts as a cheat code for the dark side, because he removes every traditional weakness of the undead while amplifying all their strengths. He cannot be staked, beheaded, or burned by the sun for long, and he possesses the tactical mind of a soldier combined with the instincts of a predator. Thanos or Galactus offer threats from the stars, but a vampire Wolverine represents a threat from within that cannot be outrun or outfought. He is the perfect organism for destruction, which is exactly why the writers usually keep him on the side of good. The scary truth about Wolverine is that he is already a monster who chooses to point his claws at the bad guys. Adding vampirism removes that choice and leaves only the hunger. This reminds us that the line between superhero and supervillain is often just a matter of biology. Logan remains humanity's best defense against the dark, rather than its king in our main timeline. Subscribe and hit the bell if you enjoyed this breakdown of Marvel's darkest timeline, so you avoid missing our next exploration into comic history.